Teslacam. I hope you're satisfied.
Michael was driving his Model 3 in Chino, California. While exiting State Route 71, a big rig flipped over in front of him. Michael told us this happens all the time on the ramps at this exit. It's a rather sharp turn, and the trucks usually come in way too fast from the off-ramp if the traffic light is green. Luckily, it wasn't in the left lane with a car on the right. That wouldn't have been a good story to tell. Some city construction workers rushed over to help the driver escape his overturned truck. The driver seems fine based on the footage captured by Michael's passenger side camera. Joseph was driving his Model Y in Austin, Texas when traffic stopped fairly quickly for a dog in the road. Joseph came to a complete stop, and when he noticed a pickup coming up behind him, he moved up a bit to give it some more room. Both vehicles managed to stop completely, but the Texas Disposal Service garbage truck didn't. It plowed into the pickup truck, which was then pushed into Joseph's Tesla. Clearly, the driver hadn't been paying attention as he crashed into them at full speed. Thankfully, nobody was in the oncoming lane at the time, or else they would have collided head-on with the garbage truck. There were no serious injuries, and everyone involved walked away. Joseph's two 75-pound pyre doodles were in the back of his Model Y, and they'd been thrown against the back of the driver's seat. They were quite shaken up, but they felt better after Joseph let them out to walk around. There were no passengers in the pickup truck, but the driver was transporting two vintage mopeds which had been damaged. The truck collapsed like an accordion thanks to the force of the impact, since the garbage truck driver said his truck was almost fully loaded. Obviously, all the fault lies with the garbage truck driver, and the pickup driver and Joseph weren't at fault. Joseph is now waiting to hear his repair estimate. Keith was traveling through a construction zone on I-85 just north of Spartanburg, South Carolina. There were two semi-trucks overtaking another truck, but then they matched speed and were traveling side by side. The truck in the right lane had almost passed the truck in the left lane when it suddenly swerved into the left lane, making contact with the other truck. It looks like the truck driver was trying to avoid running into the back of another vehicle. He eventually pulled over, and the vehicle he'd been trying to avoid kept going down the road. Keith doesn't think the driver of the other vehicle realized they'd almost been run over by a semi. He'd also like to give a shout out to the EV Hybrid Noir Facebook group of EV owners. While Steve was merging onto I-5 in Salem, Oregon, a car collided with a transport truck and went careening out of control and into the on-ramp. Steve stopped and called 911, and police and paramedics were dispatched to assist the driver. In the end, they were okay. Code Red was driving to his job at SpaceX on I-405 early one morning. Autopilot was set at 65 miles per hour when, all of a sudden, he was rear-ended by a white Mercedes sedan going a lot faster than he was. It instantly blew apart his left rear wheel, forcing him to pull over. It looked like the driver of the Mercedes also pulled over, but they were too far ahead for Code Red to drive and catch up. While he was on the phone with the police, the driver pulled away. As of this video's release, we don't know if the police ever found them. He says it felt like autopilot kept him from spinning out after the pit maneuver style impact. Code Red has Tesla insurance, and they're treating the accident as an uninsured hit and run unless the police find the other party. His repair estimate came to $8,100 US. If anyone knows anything about the Mercedes that hit him, please contact us so we can forward the information to the submitter. F Money was driving his Model 3 in Delray Beach, Florida. He was exiting a shopping plaza when he noticed another car that was behaving a little strangely. The driver nearly crashed into a car parked on the side of the road, but they swerved to avoid it at the last second. He then drove so close to the curb, it was nerve-wracking for F Money to watch. Eventually, he hit the curb, and F Money decided to keep his distance. Check out what happened next. Hey guys, if you can see that red subscribe button, that means you're not subscribed to the Wham Baam channel yet. It would mean the world to us if you would do that, so please hit that subscribe button. F Money pulled over, and the driver was an older man who seemed to be having a medical emergency or who'd taken too much of something. Another possibility is that the crash itself caused him to be incoherent. F Money asked him if he was okay, and he said he was, but according to F Money, he obviously wasn't. He called 911 and showed his Teslacam footage to the police when they arrived, letting them handle the situation from there. Andy was driving his Model 3 with autopilot engaged in Stockholm, Sweden. Suddenly, autopilot alerted him to something going on in front of him. A moment later, he saw a wheelbarrow emerge from under the car in front of him. He tried to swerve around it, but it was too late. Andy couldn't believe what had happened, and he stopped and reviewed the footage just to make sure that it really was a wheelbarrow. He noticed that the guy in front of him checked his car for damage before taking off. Andy called the cops and went to look for the wheelbarrow down the road, but he had no luck finding it and thinks someone else must have picked it up. The responding police officer had a laugh when Andy showed him the Teslacam footage. He said it was one of the most comical things he'd ever seen anyone hit on the road. Andy wasn't laughing as much, even though he appreciated the cops' friendly tone. He had his Tesla towed to a tire shop where he spent $600 on new tires. Luckily, the rims were okay, and he admits it could have been much worse. Nick was parked outside a bowling alley when he got his first ever car alarm trigger on his phone. He quickly ran out to his car, but he didn't see anybody around. Eventually, another driver pulled up and told him they'd witnessed a car hit his Tesla before driving off. He told them not to worry because he was sure he'd captured the accident on camera. Sure enough, when he got home, he checked his Sentry mode footage and found that a white Hyundai had backed into his car. Calling the police, he reported the hit and run. The police refused to take the report, telling him that you can't leave the scene of a hit and run or else you can't report it as a hit and run. Luckily, the footage was still helpful because Nick drove back to the same exact spot and called the police to let them know he'd gone back. And then they came to take his report. Marta was driving her Model Y home from work in Seattle, Washington when she witnessed a trailer hit a truck and run it off the road. It looks like the driver was trying to let someone merge from the on-ramp, but they did this by moving over without checking for traffic, which forced the pickup into the concrete median. The pickup truck was immobilized and the other driver just took off. This resulted in a bunch of drivers who'd witnessed the crash speeding off after the trailer, honking for the driver to stop. In the end, they had to box the driver in to force him to stop. While this was happening, Marta called 911 to let them know what had happened. Now that's some great teamwork by the witnesses who forced the hit-and-run driver to stop. Edward was at work when he noticed a notification from his Tesla app. Edward went out to his car to review his Sentry mode footage. He works next to a Trader Joe's and assumed the cart demon had come for his car, but he was surprised when he saw a skateboarder intentionally trying to damage his Model 3. The guy literally used the front end of the Tesla as a skate ramp. After looking at the footage and taking photos, there only seemed to be minimal damage. Edward will be using the Tesla paint repair kit he already had to fill in any imperfections. What would you do in a situation like this? Let us know in a comment. Falcor was driving his Model 3 in Fontana, California when the driver of a busted-up Camry used the opposing lane to cut him off and run a red light. Don't be that guy. Emily had parked her Model 3 on a street in France to grab some cheese and wine. You know, French stuff. When she came back to her car, she found this Sentry mode event. The driver of another very popular EV in Europe, a Renault Zoe, tried to park in front of her. Let's just say that Emily was very amused by what happened. She finds it funny how much confidence this guy had, putting his bumper back on like nothing had happened. Like a glove? John was on his way home from Chick-fil-A when he stopped for a red light where a black Model 3 had stalled. John could see a couple in the car struggling to get the car to turn back on. It finally did, and no doubt the couple was relieved to be moving again. Of course, after holding up the light, the other drivers were in a rush to make it before the light turned red again. This led to the driver of a black Nissan Kicks running the red light, almost hitting a Volvo in the process. John honked to warn the Volvo driver. Watch what Uncle Luke witnessed right after taking delivery of his Model Y Performance. He's so glad his Tesla hugs the road like a Dyson vacuum cleaner when it rains. Robert pulled to the side of the road into a legal parking spot to dig something out of his center console. Robert is a delivery driver and, out of habit, he turned on his hazard lights when he pulled off the road. He has no idea how this guy didn't see him, especially since his car had a backup camera. The guy just started backing up, and by the time Robert had a chance to honk, it was too late for him to stop. Luckily, the Tesla was in drive, so it just rolled backward and there was no damage. The irony is that Robert had just quit his driving job 2 days prior without a single accident while on the road for work, which was over 12,000 miles. Is an Acura bump considered a Honda bump? Leave a comment and tell us what you think.